You welcome U.S. Coins 1943 coin collectors, treasure hunters, and anyone who loves the thrill of discovering hidden gems in everyday change. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of rare and valuable coins, and trust me, you won't want to miss this. Imagine this: you're sorting through some loose change, and you come across a 1990p Washington quarter. It looks just like any other quarter, right? But what if I told you that this seemingly ordinary coin could be worth a fortune? That's right, some of these 1990 quarters are so rare that they have been sold for an eye-watering amount of money. In today's video, we'll uncover why this particular quarter is so special, what makes certain coins extremely valuable, and how you can check if you might be holding on to one of these hidden treasures. So, stay with me until the very end, because you won't believe how much a rare 1990p quarter can be worth. Let's start with a little history. The Washington quarter has been a key part of U.S. currency since 1932, originally introduced to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington. Designed by John Flanagan, this coin has remained an American staple for decades. By 1990, millions of quarters were being minted at the Philadelphia, P., Denver, D., and San Francisco, S. mints. While most of these coins are common, a select few contain errors, unique characteristics, or were preserved in such pristine condition that their value skyrocketed. Now, let's break down the design and details of the 1990p quarter so you know exactly what to look for. On the obverse, front, side, you'll find the familiar portrait of George Washington, his image bold and proud. Above his head, the word Liberty is clearly inscribed. To the left, you'll see "In God We Trust," and directly below his portrait, the year 1990 is stamped. To the right of the year, you'll notice the P mint mark, indicating that this coin was minted in Philadelphia. Flipping over to the reverse, back at side, you'll find the image of a majestic bald eagle, its wings spread wide, clutching a bundle of arrows, a symbol of strength and defense. Below the eagle, olive branches signify peace. The words United States of America curve around the top, while the Latin phrase E pluribus unum sits just below. At the bottom, you'll see the denomination proudly displayed, $quarter. Now, let's talk about what makes certain 1990p quarters exceptionally rare and valuable. There are three main factors that determine a coin's worth. 1. Minting errors, mistakes made during production that make a coin unique. 2. High-grade condition, coins that are nearly flawless and uncirculated. 3. Rare variants, special editions or coins with unique features. Let's go over some of the most valuable errors found in the 1990p quarter. First, we have the double die error. This occurs when the coin's design is accidentally struck twice, creating a slightly doubled appearance on letters or images. If you look closely at a 1990p quarter and notice doubling in the words Liberty or In God We Trust, you may be holding on to a rare and valuable piece. Next, there's the off-center strike error. This happens when the coin is not properly aligned in the press, causing part of the design to be shifted off to the side. The more off-center the strike, the rarer the coin becomes. Some dramatically off-center 1990p quarters have been sold for huge amounts of money. Another rare error is the missing clad layer error. Normally, a U.S. quarter is made of a copper core with a shiny nickel coating. But sometimes, due to a mistake in the minting process, the outer layer is missing, leaving the coin with a dull, copper-colored appearance. If you ever find a 1990p quarter that looks more like a penny, don't ignore it, it could be incredibly valuable. One more exciting error to watch for is the broad strike error. This occurs when a coin is struck without the retaining collar, causing it to spread out and appear wider and flatter than a normal quarter. These unique coins are highly collectible and can fetch big money at auctions, and let's not forget about die cracks and cuts. Over time, the metal dies used to stamp coins can develop cracks, leaving raised lines or blobs on the coin's surface. If you find a 1990p quarter with an unusual raised bump or break in the design, you might have something truly special on your hands. Now, let's talk about grading and condition, because this plays a major role in determining how much a 1990p quarter is worth. A heavily worn, circulated quarter will usually be worth just 25 cents. However, if a quarter is in pristine, uncirculated condition, its value can skyrocket. Coins are graded on a scale from poor, P1, to mint state 70, MS70, with higher grades meaning better condition. For example, a 1990p quarter graded MS67 or MS68, nearly perfect, can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. But if you have a 1990p quarter with a rare minting error or in an ultra-high grade, the price could be truly unbelievable. Now, the moment you've been waiting for, how much can a rare, valuable 1990p quarter actually be worth? If you have a 1990p quarter in excellent, uncirculated condition, or one with a rare minting error, you could be looking at an astonishing value of $70,000. Yes, you heard that right, $70,000 for a single quarter. So, before you spend your next quarter, take a closer look at it. That little piece of change in your pocket could actually be a hidden fortune. Top 2 1986p Washington quarter. You might be holding onto something extremely valuable without even realizing it. Yes, you heard that right. Some 1986p quarters have sold for thousands of dollars, and in rare cases, one of these coins could be worth an absolute fortune. But what makes certain coins so special? Why do some quarters carry values far beyond their face value? And most importantly, how can you identify one of these rare and valuable quarters? Stick with me until the very end because I'm going to break down everything you need to know from the history of this coin to the rare minting errors that can make it worth a small fortune. So, without further ado, let's get started. The Washington quarter has been a staple in American currency since 1932. Originally introduced to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington. It was never meant to be a permanent design, but the public loved it, and it has remained in circulation for decades. In 1986, the Philadelphia Mint produced millions of quarters with the P Mint mark. However, despite this high production number, not all of these coins were minted perfectly. And as we know in the coin collecting world, even the smallest minting errors can turn a common coin into a highly sought-after treasure. Before we jump into the rare and valuable versions of this quarter, let's first go over the design details so you know exactly what to look for. On the obverse, front, side, you'll find the iconic bust of George Washington, originally designed by sculptor John Flanagan. The word Liberty is placed boldly at the top, while the national motto, "In God We Trust," is positioned just to the left of Washington's profile. Beneath his chin, you'll see the date 1986, and if your quarter was minted in Philadelphia, it will have a small P Mint mark right next to it. Turning the coin over to the reverse, back side, you'll notice the majestic bald eagle, standing with its wings spread wide, clutching a bundle of arrows, symbolizing strength and readiness for defense. Just below the eagle, you'll see a wreath of olive branches, representing peace. The phrase United States of America is curved along the top edge, followed by E pluribus unum, and at the bottom, the denomination $quarter is clearly inscribed. Now that you know what this quarter looks like, let's get to the most exciting part, what makes certain 1986p quarters rare and valuable. There are a few key reasons why some quarters from 1986 can sell for staggering amounts of money. 1. Rare minting errors, mistakes made during the production process that make a coin unique. 2. High-grade condition, coins that are nearly flawless and in pristine condition. 3. Unusual variants, special features that make a coin highly desirable among collectors. Let's start with the minting errors, because this is where the real treasure lies. One of the most famous errors found on the 1986p quarter is the double die obverse (DDO) error. This occurs when the coin's design is stamped twice, creating a slight overlapping or doubling effect. If you look closely at the words Liberty, In God We Trust, or the numbers in the date 1986, and you see signs of doubling, then congratulations, you may be holding on to a highly valuable coin. Next, we have the off-center strike error. This happens when the coin blank is not properly aligned in the press, causing the design to be shifted off-center. The greater the misalignment, the more valuable the coin becomes. Some of these dramatic off-center strikes have sold for thousands of dollars. Another incredible error is the missing clad layer error. As you may know, Washington quarters are made of a copper core with a nickel coating, giving them that shiny silver appearance. However, some quarters left the mint without their nickel layer, exposing the raw copper underneath. These coins look more like pennies than quarters, making them rare and highly collectible. Then, there's the broad strike error, where the quarter is struck without the retaining collar that gives it a defined circular shape. These coins appear wider, thinner, and stretched out, making them incredibly unique and desirable among collectors, and don't forget about die cracks and cuds. Over time, the metal dies used to strike the coins develop cracks, leading to raised lines or blobs on the quarter's surface. If you find a 1986 P quarter with an unusual raised bump or break in the design, you may have a rare collector's item in your hands. Now, let's talk about coin grading, because even a perfectly normal 1986 P quarter can be valuable if it's in top condition. Coins are graded on a scale from poor, P1, to mint state 70, MS 70, with higher numbers meaning better condition. A typical 1986 P quarter found in pocket change will likely be in very fine, VF, or extremely fine, EF, condition, worth only its face value. But if you happen to own one in mint state 67, MS 67, or higher, it could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction. And now, let's get to the big question: how much can a rare 1986 P quarter be worth? If you're lucky enough to have one with a rare error, or a nearly perfect uncirculated quarter in high-grade condition, you could be looking at a value of $73,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $73,000 for a single quarter. So, before you spend that spare change in your pocket, take a closer look. That 1986 P quarter you've been holding onto might just be a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered. Top 3 1997 P Washington quarter, something you've probably handled countless times before, only to discover that it's not just worth 25 cents, but a fortune. Yes, you heard that right. Some rare and special quarters from 1997 are worth an astonishing amount of money, and today, we're going to uncover exactly why. Stay with me until the very end, because I'll be revealing what makes this coin so valuable, how to spot rare errors, and why collectors are willing to pay huge amounts for certain versions of this quarter. Let's dive right into the history, rarity, and secrets of the 1997 P Washington quarter. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington. Originally, it was intended to be a one-year commemorative issue, but due to its popularity, it remained in circulation and became a permanent fixture in U.S. currency. The 1997 P quarter was minted in Philadelphia, and while millions of these coins were produced, not all of them are created equal. Some have rare errors, others are in pristine condition, and a select few are so unique that collectors will pay an extraordinary price for them. Before we get into what makes certain 1997 P quarters worth so much, let's take a moment to appreciate the design of this historic coin. On the obverse, front, side, you'll see the iconic bust of George Washington, originally designed by sculptor John Flanagan. The word Liberty is placed above Washington's head, and to the left of his profile, you'll find the national motto, "In God We Trust." Beneath his chin, you'll see the date 1997, and if the coin was minted in Philadelphia, it will have a small P mint mark right next to it. Now, flipping over to the reverse, back side, you'll notice the majestic bald eagle, standing with its wings spread wide. The eagle is holding a bundle of arrows, symbolizing the strength and readiness of the United States, and just below, you'll see a wreath of olive branches, representing peace. The top of the coin displays the words United States of America, followed by E pluribus unum, and at the bottom, the denomination $quarter is clearly inscribed. So now, the big question: what makes the 1997 P quarter valuable? There are three key factors that determine whether a 1997 P quarter is worth a small fortune. 1. Minting errors, mistakes that happen during production, making the coin unique. 2. High-grade condition, coins that are nearly flawless and in pristine condition. 3. Unusual variants, special features that make the coin highly desirable among collectors. Let's start with the minting errors, because this is where things get really exciting. One of the most famous errors found on the 1997 P quarter is the double die obverse, DDO, error. This happens when the coin is stamped twice, creating a slight doubling effect on the design. If you look closely at the words Liberty, In God We Trust, or the numbers in the date 1997, and you see signs of doubling, then congratulations, you might be holding a highly valuable coin. Another rare error is the off-center strike error. This occurs when the blank coin is not properly aligned in the press, causing the design to be shifted off-center. The greater the misalignment, the more valuable the coin becomes. Some of these dramatic off-center strikes have sold for thousands of dollars. Then, we have the missing clad layer error. As you might know, Washington quarters are made of a copper core with a nickel coating, which gives them their shiny silver appearance. However, some 1997 quarters were accidentally struck without their outer nickel layer, exposing the raw copper beneath. These coins look more like pennies than quarters and are highly sought after by collectors. Another rare and valuable error is the broad strike error. This happens when the quarter is struck without the retaining collar, causing the coin to be wider, thinner, and stretched out. Since this makes the coin look very different from a normal quarter, it becomes extremely valuable in the eyes of collectors. And don't forget about die cracks and cuds. Over time, the metal dies used to stamp coins develop cracks, leading to raised lines or blobs on the quarter's surface. If you find a 1997 P quarter with an unusual raised bump or break in the design, you might be holding a rare collector's item. Now, let's talk about coin grading, because even a perfectly normal 1997 P quarter can be valuable if it's in top condition. Coins are graded on a scale from poor, P1, to mint state 70, MS 70, with higher numbers meaning better condition. A typical 1997 P quarter found in circulation will likely be in very fine, VF, or extremely fine, EF, condition, which means it's only worth its face value. But if you find one in mint state 67, MS 67, or higher, you could be looking at hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction. And now, let's get to the moment you've been waiting for. How much can a rare 1997 P quarter be worth? If you have one with a rare minting error, or a nearly perfect uncirculated quarter in high-grade condition, you could be looking at a value of $71,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $71,000 for a single quarter. So, before you spend that spare change, take a closer look. That 1997 P quarter you've been holding on to might just be a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered. Top 4 1965 Washington quarter. And now, you may be thinking, what's so special about a 1965 quarter? After all, these coins were produced in massive numbers, and millions are still in circulation today. But not all 1965 quarters are created equal. Some are hiding unique characteristics, rare errors, and shocking minting mistakes that make them worth far more than their face value. In fact, one of these rare 1965 quarters has been sold for an unbelievable amount of money, a price that will blow your mind. So stay with me until the very end, because I'll be revealing exactly how much these quarters can be worth and what to look for in your own collection. Let's begin by understanding why the 1965 quarter is so unique. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932, originally as a one-year commemorative coin to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington. However, due to its popularity, it remained in circulation permanently. From 1932 to 1964, these quarters were made of 90% silver and 10% copper, making them highly valuable in terms of metal content alone. But 1965 was a turning point. Due to rising silver prices, the U.S. Mint removed silver from quarters entirely, replacing it with a copper-nickel clad composition. This change marked the beginning of the modern clad coinage era. So, if you find a 1964 or earlier Washington quarter, it will have real silver content, making it worth far more than face value. But here's where it gets really interesting. Some 1965 quarters were accidentally struck on leftover silver planchets from 1964. That's right. During the transition period, a few silver planchets were still in the mint's machinery, and instead of being melted down, they were mistakenly used to produce 1965 quarters. These ultra-rare coins are known as 1965 silver quarters, and they are one of the biggest treasures a collector can find. So, how can you tell if you have a 1965 silver quarter? There are a few key tests you can do. 1. The edge test. Regular 1965 quarters have a copper-colored strip on the edge. If your quarter's edge is completely silver with no copper showing, it could be a rare 1965 silver quarter. 2. The weight test. Regular clad quarters weigh 5.67 grams, but a silver quarter weighs 6.25 grams. Using a precise scale, you can check the weight of your 1965 quarter. If it's heavier, you may have a valuable silver error coin. 3. The sound test. Silver quarters produce a higher-pitched ring when dropped on a hard surface, while clad quarters sound dull. Now, let's move on to the minting errors that make some 1965 quarters extremely valuable. One of the most famous and sought-after errors is the double die obverse (DDO) error. This happens when the design is accidentally stamped twice, creating a doubling effect on the letters, numbers, or Washington's profile. If you look closely at the words Liberty or In God We Trust on your quarter and see a slight doubling, you may have a highly valuable coin. Another amazing error to watch for is the off-center strike error. This happens when the blank coin planchet is not properly aligned in the minting press, causing the design to be shifted off-center. The more off-center the design, the more valuable the coin. Then, there's the missing clad layer error. Since 1965 quarters are made with a copper core and a nickel coating, sometimes a coin is struck without its outer layer, exposing the raw copper beneath. If you find a 1965 quarter that looks more like a penny, you might have an extremely rare and valuable collector's item. Another exciting minting mistake is the broad strike error, where the coin is struck without the collar that holds it in place, making it wider and thinner than a normal quarter. These errors are rare and can fetch a high price at auction. Now, let's talk about the grading and condition of a 1965 quarter. Even if your coin doesn't have errors, it can still be valuable if it's in pristine condition. Coins are graded from poor, P1, to mint state 70, MS 70, and quarters that are mint state 65, MS 65, or higher can command a significant premium. For example, a 1965 quarter in poor condition will only be worth its face value of 25 cents, but a high-grade, uncirculated quarter in MS 67 or higher can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Now, let's get to the most exciting part: how much can a rare 1965 quarter be worth? If you have a 1965 silver quarter, a major minting error, or a nearly flawless high-grade example, you could be looking at a value of $78,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $78,000 for a single quarter. So, before you spend that 1965 quarter on a vending machine snack, take a closer look. You just might be holding one of the rarest and most valuable coins in circulation today. Top 5 1974 D Washington quarter. You might have a 1974 quarter in your pocket or coin jar right now. But did you know that some of these coins are worth an absolute fortune? Yes, a simple 25-cent piece from 1974 could be a collector's dream, fetching thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars at auction. But why? What makes certain 1974 D quarters so valuable? Well, that's exactly what we're about to uncover. From rare mint errors to high-grade specimens, these coins have unique characteristics that make them incredibly sought after. So, if you love rare coins, numismatic history, and the thrill of finding valuable treasures, make sure to watch this video until the end, because we're going to reveal just how much one of these quarters sold for, and trust me, the final number will leave you speechless. Let's begin with the history and background of the 1974 D Washington quarter. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Originally, these quarters were made of 90% silver, but by 1965, due to rising silver prices, the U.S. Mint switched to a copper-nickel clad composition. This change drastically altered the way quarters were produced, and it led to a number of minting anomalies and errors, some of which can be found in the 1974 D quarter. And now, let's break down what makes certain 1974 D quarters incredibly valuable. The first major factor is mint errors. Minting mistakes are often what separate an ordinary coin from a highly sought-after rarity. One of the most famous errors in the 1974 D quarter is the double die obverse (DDO) error. This happens when the coin's design is stamped twice, creating a noticeable doubling effect on certain elements. If you closely examine the words Liberty or In God We Trust on a 1974 D quarter and notice slight doubling, you could be holding an extremely valuable error coin. Another highly desirable error is the off-center strike. This happens when the blank coin planchet is not properly aligned in the minting press, causing the design to be shifted away from the center. The more off-center the strike, the more valuable the coin becomes. Next, we have the clipped planchet error. This occurs when a coin is struck on a planchet that was improperly cut, resulting in a missing section of the coin. If you find a 1974 D quarter with a clean, curved edge missing, it could be a rare error that collectors are willing to pay big money for. Another exciting variety is the broad strike error, which happens when a coin is struck without the retaining collar, causing it to spread out wider than usual. These quarters look stretched or misshapen and can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. One of the rarest and most valuable mistakes found in some 1974 D quarters is the transitional error. These are coins that were mistakenly struck using silver planchets from earlier years. Even though the U.S. Mint had officially stopped producing silver quarters by 1965, some leftover silver planchets were accidentally used in later years. If you happen to find a 1974 D quarter with no copper edge and a slightly heavier weight, you may have discovered an incredibly rare silver transitional error coin. Now, let's talk about the importance of coin grading. Even without errors, certain high-grade quarters can be extremely valuable. Coins are graded on a scale from poor, P1, to mint state 70, MS70, and the higher the grade, the more valuable the coin. Most quarters in circulation today have signs of wear and tear. But if you happen to find a 1974 D quarter in mint state condition, especially MS67 or higher, it could be worth a small fortune. For example, while a heavily worn 1974 D quarter might only be worth its face value of 25 cents, an uncirculated, high-grade version can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction.so. How can you tell if your 1974 D quarter is worth big money? Here's what to look for. 1. Check for errors. Look for doubling on the lettering, an off-center strike, missing clad layers, or unusual markings. 2. Examine the edge. A regular 1974 D quarter has a visible copper strip on the edge, but a rare transitional silver error will have no copper showing. 3. Weigh your coin. A regular 1974 D quarter weighs 5.67 grams, but a rare silver error will weigh 6.25 grams. 4. Look at the condition. If your coin has sharp details, no scratches, and a strong luster, it could be a high-grade specimen worth serious money. Now, let's get to the most exciting part. How much can a rare 1974 D quarter be worth? Depending on its condition and whether it has rare errors, a 1974 D quarter can sell for thousands of dollars. But the real jaw-dropping prices come from exceptional finds, and one of these rare quarters has sold for $74,000. Yes, you heard that right, $74,000 for a single quarter. So, before you spend that 1974 D quarter on a soda, take a closer look. You could be holding a hidden numismatic treasure worth a life-changing amount of money. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about rare and valuable coins, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest updates. Thank you for watching, and as always, happy coin hunting.